to Survival Theory. Today we're going to take a look at emergency shelters with the 6x8 tarp. Now there's three criteria for the shelter, for this emergency shelter. It has to be rainproof, obviously. It needs to be fairly resistant to wind, and it needs to have a floor. Now the reason I want a floor is because if it's raining, the ground is going to get wet. Maybe it's already saturated, maybe it's kind of boggy. Maybe you don't want bugs crawling on you. So we're going to look at 6x8 tarp emergency shelter options with a floor that are effective. Let's get busy. Now one quick temporary shelter, possibly overnight, shelter with the floor is the Aframe. Because this is a rectangle, that gives us two options, the 8-foot length or the 6-foot length. Let's go with the 8-foot length. Check that out. So we're running along the 8-foot length, so we'll just start in the corner. Stake it down. Come down here to the other 8-foot end. Stake it down. And you're going to want to stake down the middle too. This is for rain, heavy winds. Definitely want to stake down the middle. For the floor, I'm just going to use these sticks, but you could run a ridge line, tie it to one tree on each side. Just whatever you can find. I want to use a stick. Now you need to get in and out, so you can't just put a stick in the middle. But what you can do is run your stick to the side and then run a string line out. And stake that down, or tie it to something. That way the stick's not in your way. You can get in and out of your shelter. And I'm only using cordage about as long as the shoelace would be. So if you don't have any cordage, use your shoelaces to erect your shelter. You're good to go. Now, this is a very basic A-frame setup with the floor. And again, I've got my stick over to the side so that I have access. And then just run it down to a stake, tie it to a tree. You can run a ridge line, whatever you're able to do. Now this floor, you want to fold it in a little bit so that rain doesn't collect on that floor, and then you're just basically making a swimming pool. And on this side, just put it through the grommet around this stick, staked it down. Again, you can use shoelaces, run a ridge line, tie it to a tree. And again, I want to fold this in so that I'm not collecting water on the tarp. Now this to me is very claustrophobic. Very little room, very claustrophobic. But what I do like about it is because it's 8 foot long and I'm only 6 foot long, that gives 1 foot of overhang on each side so that wind-driven rain most likely will never reach me. Let's crawl in there. Oh. Definitely claustrophobic, but it will definitely work. So the 8 foot is definitely claustrophobic, but it does work. Let's try the 6 foot length. So what I'll do is I'll come into this 2 foot in along this 8 foot side. Do the same over here. Now what I want to do is go 1, 2, stake that in, into my third one, which would be the center point along the 8 foot. So 2 foot in and 4 foot in. At 4 foot, I want to go about straight up. And then stake this corner. Now what that does, by making a wall straight up, it gives me lots of room. There we go. Now I'll just run a line out. Stake it down. Now I'll go to the back and do the same thing. And once again, I'll come and stake down this corner. So it's running 6 foot long, which means I've got 8 feet of tarp edge to work with on this front. Stake the corner down, and at the halfway point, which is 4 feet, I put a stick here. And again, you can run a ridge line the whole way, tie each of these corners to a tree, whatever you have. Use your shoelaces, cordage, whatever you have. So that means I've got about a 2 foot rise to the ground, and it's straight up. That way it's not very claustrophobic. I have a lot more room, and I've got about a little bit less than 2 feet here on the floor. And as you can see, this sloped wall goes way beyond the floor area, which gives you more room. You don't feel as claustrophobic. You could put some gear there. Maybe your gear would even pull up on the tarp some, giving you more room. Fold this in a little bit to keep water if it's coming in this way, if you didn't set it up right or the wind changed direction. Let's crawl in here and check it out. So I've got plenty of room. It's not as claustrophobic. The tarp is not touching me. And I've got this straight wall right here. And of course I can't lay out flat, or else I could get rain on my feet or my head. So I do have to curl up when it's run on the 6 foot length. But for a temporary shelter, it's very effective, not very claustrophobic. Now just for a morale booster and to get some fresh air, I propped it up on these stakes, then tied it down. Look how much lift that gave it. It's pretty awesome. Definitely make you feel like you have more room. Let in a little bit more fresh air. Alright, so we just looked at a couple variations of the A-frame with the floor for a quick shelter. Now let's do the lean-to shelter, a variation of that. So taking this 6-foot side, I'm going to go about 2 foot in, stake that down. And I'll go over 8 foot over, stake this down about 2 foot in. So I'll take a stick. Am I still in the picture? Yeah. So I'll take a stick here. Now I've got a flap. I'll just run a cord over this stick. And I'll stake this down. And I'll do the same thing on this side. I'll go about 2 foot in, wherever that grommet is. Put my stick in there. Put a loop on it. And I'll run another loop through this corner. Now I've got one string holding both the stick and the corner, and I'll stake that down. So there's your basic lean-to with the floor. Not much floor, but it is set in so that you don't get any rain on you, because you've got 4 foot of cover and 2 foot of floor, so you've got basically a 2 foot overhang. And you want to curl in the corners so they don't get water. But I don't like the tarp hitting me because it's very low. So what you can do is raise the center up, but to do that, you need to tie off that center first. Maybe 9-10 inches away from your back line from corner to corner. Go up about 9 or 10 inches. And put a catch right there. So I went through this lean-to, modified lean-to, kind of fast, but you can see it's got a floor. On the 6 foot side, I went to the first grommet, staked it down. That leaves about 4 feet to this corner. On the 8 foot side, I went in the first grommet, and I used one string tie off both of those. And I did the same thing over here. Going in one grommet and using one string for both of those points. That gives a pretty good overhang. There's enough room in there. It's actually kind of comfortable. The only spot I hit is on my shoulders. So it's all right. And of course, to make it more comfortable, I just put a 1/2 inch around the marble, put a stick up to prop it up, staked it down. So it gives it that little bit of lift. Now one thing I did want to show you, how you stake down these corners makes a difference. Because the water comes down the tarp, and your floor can become a collection point, and you're going to get soaking wet. See how I've got the grommet on top? Now if I were to run this the other way, Well, the whole thing just collapsed. But if I were to put that grommet on the bottom, like that, and stake it down, that allows water to come down here and start filling up my floor. If you put the grommet on top, it forces that floor to tuck up on the other side of that grommet so that hole does not reach the floor. So the grommet's on top and you stake it down, that prevents water from going down into your floor. And of course you'll tuck up the flooring under there. But you don't want floor at or beyond the edge of your tarp, because it's just going to collect water as it rains. And one of the advantages to this setup compared to the regular lean-to, because remember we're trying to get a floor in here also. A regular lean-to would be open this high all the way to the edge, and by folding this flap down and coming into the second grommet to support it, we get a lot more protection from driving rain on this side. Of course, we've got the back, and on this side as well, because it's lower to the ground. So it's kind of three-sided protection, much better than a regular lean-to. And I'm still just using 1, 2, 3, 4 stakes. And in this case, I've modified it a 5th stake because I want to raise up this. And I just use these stakes as toggles to catch these corners. Now in that lean-to I just showed you, there's enough clearance and enough overhang where you can break out your stove, make some coffee, tea, cook some oatmeal, whatever you need to do. And these shelters are designed for, 2, 3, 4 hours plus in the rain when you need to get out of it, maybe even overnight. And they have a floor to keep you from getting soaking wet, which is pretty important. Now using a 6x8 tarp, it somewhat limits your shelter capabilities as far as avoiding the rain and having a floor. But one of the advantages, super lightweight, very cheap. I just bought a 6x8 camouflage tarp, a real cheap one, super lightweight. It's like $7, so that's a good investment for a good shelter. Well, thanks for watching Survival Theory. Please share, like, subscribe, and I'll see you next time.